Things get to terrible places one tiny step at a time. You know, if I encroach on you and I'm sophisticated about it, I'm going to encroach 2 millimeters. I'm going to encroach right to the point where you start to protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. Then you're going to calm down. Then I'm going to encroach again right to the point where you protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. And I'm just going to do that forever. And before you know it, you're going to be back 3 miles from where you started, and you'll have done it one step at a time. And then you'll go, oh, how'd I get here? And the answer was, well, I pushed you a little farther than you should have gone, and you agreed. And so then I pushed you a little farther than you should have gone again, and you agreed.
It's all been building to what the government ultimately wants. By now you probably get it. Control. They will literally create a crisis, then use it to get more control, and then they'll always lead to another crisis, which leads to the government taking more control, and the cycle continuously repeats itself. And what's the next major step in all this control? You already know how much they take from you in taxes, how much it costs you to borrow the money because they own interest rates. So why not try to control the money left over still sitting in your bank account? You got it. The federal government and the likes of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, know they can't circumvent the Constitution, so the only way is to make you bend to their will by controlling your livelihood. How are they going to do that? Simple. Make sure that they control, or at least have knowledge of, all of your money and every financial transaction you make. Digital currency. Now, look, even CNN noted the United States is the latest to signal urgency in the research and potential digital version of its dollar via a central bank digital currency, or CBDC. That's CNN saying that. That is how they're going to do it. They're going to sell it to you under the guise of ease, security, greater good, whatever. And the U.S. government is taking their lead from someone who no one elected, has demonstrated he can't be trusted, and has also no real qualifications to be given any advice on financial stuff on the world stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the real-life Dr. Evil, Klaus Schwab, the man that every power-hungry leftist worships. And this man wants the digital currency so bad, he can taste it. What exactly is a centralized digital currency? Well, it's a digital form of central bank money that is widely available to the general public. That's the actual definition of it. Now, a centralized digital currency, also known as a CBDC, would differ from existing digital money, like the Bitcoin, which we'll talk about in a sec, because it would be a liability of the Federal Reserve, not of a commercial bank. Its value, its availability, and even whether or not you can spend it and what you can spend it on would be mostly controlled by unelected bureaucrats. You thought the Patriot Act, FISA courts, and the FBI spying on you, stripping you of your freedoms? You think that was bad? Just wait for this. This will, not may, it will lead to confiscation, maybe expiration dates on funds that you thought you owned. Blacklisting products and people. You don't think Gavin Newsom, that wacko out in California, isn't salivating at the ability to limit the amount of money you can spend on a gun? Like China is doing right now. It can even go the way of the social credit score. They're doing that too. China's digital yuan makes it easier for the Communist Party to view users' financial data and censor their activity. Weird. You think I'm crazy? Think again. They're doing this right out in the open, and no one is calling them on it. Take a look. Quote, Joe Biden ordered federal agencies to start to study the implications of a government-backed digital currency. The Federal Reserve is on the bandwagon for this, with studies and experiments already underway. But what's standing in their way? Well, two things. One is cash. They need to get rid of a cash-based system if they're going to do this, because if non-trackable cash is an option, people will just convert their digital currency over to cash and get around the government's restrictions. It has that pesky little thing on it for all debts, public and private. And two, private digital currency like Bitcoin. Why? Well, it's blockchain technology. It exists everywhere and nowhere, with no way for the government to manipulate or control it. You think I'm lying? Remember the 3 banks that just went bust? Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic Bank, and Signature Bank. All premier banks for Bitcoin or the like. Why do you think they didn't get bailed out? It's all connected, folks. So how do you get people to willingly give up their own autonomy, especially their financial autonomy? Simple. Give them free money. They'll take it. UBI, Universal Basic income. And no surprise, like always, our buddy Klaus Schwab and the rest of these globalist, communists, and lizard people are trying to use a crisis to impose it. Check this out. What do you think the lockdowns were about? And why do you think they closed mom and pop stores but let big box retailers stay open? Forced economic consolidation. World governments knew that if they could make people suffer financially, they could get them to rely on government. It's being tried in England right now. I'm showing you the receipts, folks. COVID was a trial run. In May, CBS News reported, prepare for the next pandemic. Future pathogens with, quote, an even deadlier potential than COVID. That's the WHO chief, the World Health Organization that nobody wants to listen to anymore. What they are doing is so blatant that even a member of the European Parliament, Christine Anderson, called it out. Listen to this.
This whole COVID madness, this so-called pandemic, it was just a test balloon. For what, you ask? Well, to see how far they could go. To see what exactly they would have to do to get free individuals in a free and democratic society to consent to being forced into compliance.
Boom. This time, though, it'll be double secret probation shutdown. People will have no choice but to take the universal basic income, except it will only be available in the centralized digital currency. And those big box retailers that now own most of the market, substantially more after COVID, they will be forced to only accept this, not cash. Otherwise, the government would shut them down for, health reasons or safety or the greater good. This is already happening in some places. Oh, Carl, I've never heard this. How could this possibly be true? Exactly. Of course you've never heard of it, because they're doing it in places that censor it. Ours tried to do this too. They just didn't totally succeed. Still don't believe me? Look to our north. Canada. Canada is literally succeeding. Fortunately, Ted Cruz understands this. He's one of the few actually fighting it. Folks, my point here is that a centralized digital currency is the end of our freedoms. Period. Full stop. It circumvents the Constitution because it gets you and I to willingly give up our rights out of desperation under the guise of a crisis. It's total control that we cannot turn over to Washington, D.C.
Attention Americans, your money, your privacy, your future, all could be at risk with central bank digital currencies, or CBDC.
We've got some bad news. SWIFT, the payment messaging system, which is utilized by the majority of the global banks, have announced that they are setting up a CBDC platform that's coming out in 12 to 24 months.
CBDCs are the latest tool for central banker control, giving government bureaucrats and central bankers unrestricted access to your personal transactions and control over your money. Don't let them take away your financial privacy and independence that the use of cash provides.
I remember, I will share with you a small story. Many years ago, I was traveling with, who was at that time Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, from Singapore to Beijing in his plane, and we talked about the difference of Western and Eastern philosophy. And he explained to me, look, you in the Western, based on the history, on enlightenment, you have a concept which protects the individual against the collective. We, based on Confucius, we have more concept which protects the collective against the individual. Today, particularly at times when the individual could have so much power, we have to find a way to harmonize those two concepts.
They're trying to put into place a digital transaction control grid, which will tell you what you can do with your money, when you can do it, where you can go. If they don't want you to be able to use your money more than 5 miles from your home, that's it. Your money will turn off 5 miles from your home. If they decide they want to double taxes, they just take it out of your account. You know, it's all taxation with absolutely zero representation. And the interesting thing about it, once they get the system into place, it won't even be, I believe it won't even be your national central bank that will control. It will be the Bank of International Settlements and the global systems that will control.
It's not a national identity versus a global identity. We as model citizens, global citizens, we have to learn to integrate a national and a global identity.
We are watching the U.S. dollar collapsing in real time and on purpose. Klaus Schwab and the globalists that all got together this week at Davos and run the World Economic Forum, they are counting on it. They want the U.S. dollar to collapse. And so does, by the way, Janet Yellen and President Biden. They want it to happen so they can roll out a CBDC, a central bank digital currency that is backed by Wall Street, where they will have total control over every aspect of your life. Now, we're going to show you how they plan to do this in a moment. Yes, your U.S. dollar won't be run by Washington. It'll be run by Wall Street bankers, the same guys responsible for the 2008 financial collapse, by the way. But they might have just met their match in Donald Trump with a major announcement this week. And we'll get to that part of the story here in a moment. First of all, the United States dollar is, of course, backed by debt. It's not backed by gold or silver or anything else. It's backed by debt. And countries around the world are dumping U.S. debt. They're dumping U.S. treasuries in favor of gold and silver-backed currencies. So the United States can't operate. It can't function if people aren't loaning us money and buying U.S. treasury bills. But this is all part of the plan. The plan has been to run the U.S. dollar into the ground on purpose so that Wall Street banks could issue a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, a digital U.S. dollar that's not backed by the United States Treasury, but instead it's owned and operated by Wall Street. And this is the most important part of this news. Investigative journalist Whitney Webb is perhaps the smartest person in the world on how the CBDC plan will come together. She just wrote an in-depth expose on how this elite-backed digital payment system will come together. I spoke to her this week, and she explained to me how Wall Street plans to roll this out with the coordination of the White House and Hollywood. And spying on Americans will be central to this new CBDC.
We know that these top Wall Street banks or whatever companies are chosen by the U.S. government to be able to issue these digital dollars. They're going to be full on to collaborate with the surveillance agenda of the U.S., which is, increasingly a financial surveillance agenda as well. And there's a lot of efforts to eliminate right now online and financial privacy for Americans, and we need to be very wary of that. And Wall Street has shown time and again that they're very willing to collaborate.
So let that sink in for a moment. The same global elites that forced us into lockdowns and caused the housing collapse are the very same people that will control your money. They will surveil everything you buy and everywhere you go. Even the Financial Times confirms it's all about control in a brand new report that they call New Money. Quote, as CBDCs become more common, central banks will be able to maintain a higher degree of control over the flow of currency, while still enabling citizens to make contactless payments without leaving the purview of the central bank. CBDCs also provide central banks with unprecedented control over fiscal and monetary policies.
These people labeled subversives by Palantirs could have their constitutional rights suspended if those protocols are ever invoked. So Palantir's role in that, as far as the national security state goes, very nefarious, and they've been very involved in a lot of, other aspects of governance. It's gotten, increasingly bloated and large with over the years. It was intimately involved in Ukrainian military operations during the Ukraine-Russian conflict that's, of course, still ongoing, and are now playing an outsized role in Israel's war on Gaza, which is, as I'm sure Mint Press viewers know, is using AI to mass murder entire families. And Palantir is openly a big part of that, and they're very proud of that. J.D. Vance really owes both his political career and his previous venture capital career to Peter Thiel. For example, Peter Thiel first met J.D. Vance when J.D. Vance was in law school, and subsequently offered him his first job in venture capital at a Thiel-created venture capital firm called Mithril Capital. After that, Vance went on to become involved with AOL co-founder Steve Case and Revolution Ventures, and managed a fund there called Rise Rise of the Rest, I believe, which was heavily funded by the Walton family behind Walmart, Jeff Bezos, and, a lot of prominent figures of the American oligarchy, and subsequently started his own venture capital firm, Nardia Capital, with heavy backing again from Peter Thiel and also from Eric Schmidt, who's a major actually donor to Biden and intimately involved in Biden's science and tech policy. And actually, the two of them are on the steering committee of the rather infamous Bilderberg Conference, interestingly enough. And in addition, when Vance decided to run for office or for Senate, he was heavily funded by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel donated $15 million to his campaign, which I believe at the time, and maybe still is, the largest donation, a single donation ever made to a Senate candidate. And then J.D. Vance ran initially sort of as a never-Trumper and was very anti-Trump. And he became his vice presidential pick, arguably because that rocky relationship was soothed over by Peter Thiel personally, who took and accompanied J.D. Vance to Trump's Mar-a-Lago to sort of smooth over that relationship, and then Vance sort of became a big Trump proponent. Arguably, there's a lot of people have referred to Vance as a Peter Thiel protege, and I think, given the evidence, that's pretty fair. But Peter Thiel has several proteges. Vance is one in politics now, and obviously prominent in the Republican Party, but other noteworthy proteges include people like Sam Altman of OpenAI and WorldCoin, and also Palmer Luckey of the defense startup Anduril, and also of Oculus Rift, the virtual reality system that was sold to Facebook, which Peter Thiel, was on the board of from 2005 until 2022, when he left to try and get Trump-aligned candidates. Peter Thiel's important for a lot of reasons. I would start off with Peter Thiel by noting that he co-founded PayPal. And so PayPal is sort of one of these ubiquitous, financial, sort of like fintech websites, one of the pioneers of the field, rather. And, from its earliest days, people that were involved in setting up PayPal, which includes people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, it's been said, but the people who were making that company alongside them, that they were in discussions with intelligence agencies and federal agencies from the very beginning about what, those entities were, what they would support in a fintech company, essentially. And, as I reported back when I wrote for Mint Press, the involvement of the now PayPal owner of the who created The Intercept and sort of privatized these Snowden leaks. And a lot of them ended up, never coming out. Allegedly, some of the ones that never came out documented in detail PayPal's relationship to intelligence that has supposedly been ongoing for some time. But aside from PayPal, the clear indicator of intelligence ties with Peter Thiel comes in the form of Palantir, which he incorporated in 2003, but which didn't really start as a company around 2004, 2005. Its first funder was the CIA's venture capital arm, In-Q-Tel. The CIA was its only client until 2008. And between 2005 and 2009, the top engineers at Palantir say they made over 200 visits to CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, where the CIA directly guided and tweaked, their software products, which are now used by intelligence agencies around the world, as well as healthcare agencies. The HHS and CDC in the U.S. use Palantir, so does the UK's NHS, and it's expanded really throughout the world. What is really arguably a CIA front company, as I've written in past reports on Palantir, the reason, or rather what Alex Karp and Peter Thiel were interested in doing when they created Palantir was essentially privatizing the Total Information Awareness Program that had just been defunded by Congress. Total information awareness is sort of an outgrowth of the Reagan-Bush era of domestic surveillance, schemes, some of which came up during the Iran-Contra proceedings and are linked to things like the continuity of government protocols and the main core database, which are efforts to sort of label people, label domestic dissidents as subversives, based on their online activity. And of course, in the 80s, it was based on other metrics, but now it's your online activity. So whatever data the NSA, for example, hoovers up about you, Palantir decides whether you're deemed subversive or not.
Welcome to your future. A digitally interdependent, hyper-connected, networked world. Throw off the tethers of ordinary reality and join the digitized multitudes ruled by global e-governance. With your very own new world citizen Republic of the Great Democratic United Global States Incorporated chip card. Just one chip is now a key to every relevant database you are in on Earth. We're taking identification to a technocratic level beyond Aldous Huxley's wildest dreams and George Orwell's nightmares. One chip linked to your unique citizen number connects to all of your relevant societal business, including your passport, your driver's license, and all Federation-required licenses, titles, and registrations, your car, home, and medical insurance, all of your medical records, including your mandatory annual psychological evaluation, your DNA profile, and your prescriptions, your voter registration and history, and your bank account and digital universal basic income credits. But that's not all. Your blockchain-protected New World Citizenship also gives you a digital footprint everywhere you go on the web, from online news sources to all of your social media accounts, authenticating you online to ensure a safe, peaceful, and secure society where no one can offend anyone else, because no one can hide. Continuous, real-time, 24/7 tracking and tracing will ensure a truly peaceful, digital utopia for all. No more fear of identity theft or forgetting those pesky passwords, as your digital citizen mark will be biometrically verified through your fingerprints, iris scan, EEG, voice print, and facial map. From Cairo to Rome to Ingolstadt to Paris to Washington to Estonia and Astana. From ocean to ocean to ocean to heck, all of the oceans. Being a digital resident offers you a new concept of freedom to be a global citizen under your borderless digital New World Order.
Good evening. Allow me first to apologize. I do, like many of you, appreciate the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility, repetition. I enjoy them as much as any bloke. But in a spirit of commemoration, whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark this November the 5th by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak. Even now, orders are being shouted into telephones, and men with guns will soon be on their way. Damn it. Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there? Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and oppression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and suppressing your submission. How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you, and in your panic you turned to the now. He promised you order, he promised you peace, and all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent. More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. So if you've seen nothing, if the crimes of this government remain unknown to you, then I would suggest that you allow the 5th of November to pass unmarked. But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I ask you to stand beside me, and together we shall give them a 5th of November that shall never, ever be forgotten.
The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.